Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Erica and I make videos all about making and selling candles. And today we are finally testing those Cocoa 83 candles that I made last weekend. If you guys are not familiar with that video that I made, I did a review on a starter kit from California Candle Supply, all about testing out the Coconut 83 or Cocoa 83. I'll go ahead and leave a card up here so you guys can check out that video if you have not seen it yet, but I'm just gonna get right into it. So the candles behind me are the candles that I made last week, and I made 2 of each scent. So we made a peach scent, a chocolate scent, and a sun-washed linen scent. These are all the scents from California Candle Supply. So what I decided to do in this testing video was just show you guys the process of it burning down and what my thoughts are with the wick size that they give in the testers, and also the hot throw and the cold throw. So I broke it up into 2 different sections for the candles. So basically the first set of candles are going to be specifically for the hot throw, and I'm going to be burning them separately in my bathroom and just checking on the hot throw after about 3 to 4 hours on each scent, just to see, you know, how it performs, how the hot throw is. So what I gathered from the tester kit was that all of these candles have a 9.3% fragrance oil ratio to wax. So if that gives you kind of any indication on how the hot throw would be, to me that's actually a pretty good ratio, and I've heard that coconut wax can hold up to 10%. So that's pretty close to the highest amount that you can hold. But again, when you're testing at home, you can kind of change up the ratios you want to. I'm just following the instructions of the starter kit. So first things first, we are going to test the cold throw. This is peach, and just kind of smelling it. These have been curing without the lid. I know that a lot of people have questions on whether or not they should be curing with a lid or without a lid. These actually don't come with a lid, so I had to cure them without a lid, but just know that the scent is not just going to evaporate into the air from it sitting out. The reason why it smells a little bit more intense, I believe, when the lid's on is because all of it is trapped in the lid has it, and when you open up the lid, all of it, you know, is kind of released at you versus just having the lid already be out. So that's just my opinion on it, on why I think that the cold throw is a little bit more intense when the lid's on, but you can always cure without a lid. But just from smelling this, I mean, the cold throw is pretty good. I don't have to like really smell it like hard to be able to smell the scent. It's pretty much there, and it's a really nice scent as well. And then we have the sun-washed linen, and this one's so strong. Another thing to add to this is that the fragrance oil that you're using could make a huge difference on the scent throw. So that's why when you're testing jars and you're testing fragrances, you always want to make sure that you are testing all different fragrances from different suppliers. So if you have only been testing one fragrance oil, for instance, I get this a lot from people messaging me that they've been testing out a fragrance oil, but it's just too light for them and they're not able to smell the candle unless they're like on top of the candle trying to smell it, which I've had that happen before. But what that means is that it might just be the way that the fragrance oil performs with that wax. It could be the percentage of that fragrance oil. It could be that specific supplier's fragrance oil that might just be a little bit weaker than others. There's so many different variables. That's why testing is such an extensive process. And that's why it's good to keep testing new different scents, especially if you're trying out a wax for the first time and it's not necessarily giving you the best hot throw. Switch up the fragrance oils. Try to find some fragrance oils that people suggest that have a really strong hot throw, and those I feel are the candle scents that you should be using to test your candles with. I know that in the past I've always used lavender as an example to test with, but unless it's a very, very strong lavender, a very strong hot throw lavender, I don't really recommend using lavender, just because so many people have and they always have those questions, and I always recommend for them to test out another scent. So that's just something to keep in mind. But with this one, it's super strong scent. I like barely have to get close to it at all. This one is chocolate, and this one, it has a pretty good cold throw as well. I would say it's probably about as good as the peach, and I'm really interested to see how this performs when it's lit because it smells really good. So now what we're gonna do for the rest of the video is I'm going to flip the camera around and I'm going to show you what these look like after I light them. All of the wicks are trimmed down to about 1/4 of an inch, maybe a little bit lower than that, a little bit shorter. So whenever you guys are testing, make sure that your wicks are 1/4 of an inch to 1/8 of an inch. You never want it to be like 1/2 an inch or anything like that. It's just going to be way too big. The flame's gonna be way too big. You're gonna think that it's overwicked. So that is just something to keep in mind as well. So we're gonna go ahead and light it up first and see how it does within the first hour or two. I'll check in and give you guys updates on how it's doing. And then simultaneously at the same time, I'll be testing out the hot throw in the bathroom of each one of these individually. Okay, so now I just lit all of these so they're all lit. And as you can see, the chocolate one on the right-hand side, it's a little bit lower than the rest of them just because I got my ratios wrong in that video or something. So that ended up a little bit lower, which is okay because I actually, when I was making them, I know I was trying to make them to the directions and from what the starter kit was saying, but typically I do like to make some candles that are halfway down the jar because you always want to see how the candle performs in the middle of the jar. That's really, really important because even if the wick looks like it's doing well at the top, so for instance, if we get a full melt pool within these first 3 to 4 hours, that to me tells me that it's too big, the wick's too big. So I'm just gonna update you guys, see how we're going with these candles. And just so you guys know, these are CD6 wicks, and they are 6-ounce tumblers, and the top diameter, the inner diameter on top is 2.5 inches. So that's just so you guys know for information on this testing process. These have been going for about 1.5 hours, so just to show you kind of a bird's eye view of what it looks like. And of course, I did not center these properly, so they're not gonna burn perfectly, but I tried my best. So this is the peach scent, and this is where I am testing in my bathroom for the hot throw. So it has been going for about 1.5 hours. And actually, when I walked in here, I could smell it in the entire bathroom, and actually right before I entered the doorway, I was able to smell it. And it's actually a pretty small candle, and it hasn't melted a ton, and I was actually able to smell it quite a bit. So I'm actually pretty impressed with this one. So this is after about 3.5 hours. And I'll get this view so you guys can see. As you can see, I got that one a lot more in the middle than those ones. That one's burning more on the left. That one's burning more down right there. And as you can see, it has not reached full melt pool, which for me is a good thing because we don't want it to reach full melt pool after the first burn because it will be way too hot as it burns lower in the jar. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna blow these out, let it reharden, and then we're gonna do the second round. Now we are testing the hot throw for the chocolate scent, and honestly, it's not doing too bad. It actually smells really good. You can smell it right when you walk in, just like with the peach one. And the funny thing about this one is that my boyfriend came in to use the restroom from being outside, and he goes, "Damn, that chocolate one smells really good." So that's gonna say something when there's, you know, somebody else who doesn't know that's what we're doing. We're doing scent testing. He had no idea what these numbers meant. He just saw, you know, smelled the chocolate and looked at it and said it smelled good. So it's doing pretty good. So this is about 2 hours now after the second burn, just so you guys can see how they're looking. I've been trying to keep an eye on them to see if they're smoking a lot or if they're sooting or being like overly crazy when it comes to flickering. But as you guys know, or if you guys don't know, I don't necessarily worry too much about flickering, especially since I have a fan. I have my air conditioner on, so it is kind of bringing a breeze in here, so it's not really, you know, bothering me too much. And just kind of looking at the wicks. Let me try to get up close for you guys to see. You guys can see those. So pretty. I love looking at these candles. So my initial thoughts right now is that they actually look pretty good. You guys might be thinking after a second burn, it's not even full melt pool. These are totally way too small, but I don't think that at all. I don't think that it needs to hit full melt pool for another couple of burns. The more it burns down, the hotter it's gonna get. So it's gonna start to pull down and melt down that leftover wax on the side right there. So this one's flickering a little bit too, just because I do have the fan going on. So it's flickering a little bit more than usual for being that high up in the jar. But same thing with this one. I mean, the hot throw is really good. I walked in, I was able to smell it. Sometimes when you walk in and you can't smell anything, you have to just hover over it to be able to smell it. So this one gets a pretty good rating for me as well when it comes to hot throw. So these are a little over 3 hours now, and they're looking pretty good. I feel like they're gonna be really good once they start to burn a little bit lower in the jar. This one's doing really well. It's already burned pretty much that side. It's just that side over there, but you can tell it's a little bit off center. And yes, they are flickering, but I mean, I feel like candles flicker. It's nothing too crazy, no huge flames or anything, no massive smoke. It's looking pretty good. But it's nighttime right now, and I think I'm just gonna finish this up tomorrow with the rest of the testing. All right, so we are 2 hours in to the third burn, and some interesting things are happening, and I'm gonna explain kind of why I think this is happening. So I trimmed the wick in between each burn, and what I think I did was on this one, I might have trimmed it too short because now the flame is going lower, and if you can see, there's more buildup on the sides of the wax. That one is a little bit bigger with the flame, and it still has some wax on the side, but it's been burning. And then this one is the biggest flame, but still not too bad. I don't really look at this as being dangerous or anything, but it is burning almost all of that wax. So all of the wax from before that was on the side, it is now burning it down. And that's why I don't really get too worried when it's not burning all the way on the sides. The only issue I have is maybe with this one. This one might cause some issues. So I'm curious to see what it looks like after another 2 hours. All right, so it has been 4 hours since I lit this, and this is the third burn. So as you can see on this one, all the sides are burned down. And remember, this one was a little bit lower than the other ones when we first got started, so just keep that in mind. That is what the wick is looking like. And then these ones, this one's definitely getting drowned out. So the sides are still pretty thick right there on the sides, so it hasn't burned down completely. This one's almost burned down on the sides. It's doing okay, but it still seems a little low for the flame. So what I'm gonna do in the next burn is I'm going to experiment. So typically I use a wick trimmer right there, and I trim down the wicks before each burn. But for these two, I'm actually not going to trim down the wicks, and I am going to trim down that wick. So we will see what it looks like afterwards. All right, so it is now Monday, and you guys can see what it's looking like. So this one, you can see what the wick looks like. It's mushrooming a little bit at the top. And remember, this one started lower, so it's burned a little bit more, and as it's burning down, you can already see that it's burning hotter because of what the wick looks like. These wicks were a little bit more of a disgrace than the other ones. So what I'm gonna do is I'm not gonna trim those ones, but I am gonna trim just that mushroom tip up at the top, and then we're going to burn these for another 4 hours. Okay, I take it back. I decided to trim just a little bit off of that one, and now it's burning a lot better. As you can see in the last video, it just started being a little bit too low. So we're gonna let these run for another 4 hours. So this is after another 4 hours, and it's so interesting to me. So obviously these ones are definitely more of getting drowned out. Still after these burns, you can see that it is burning the sides, so it is not as high up on the sides as it was, but I'm assuming hopefully the next burn it'll get back to normal. This burn, I mean, it's burning pretty hot right there and pretty quick. It still has quite a bit of a good lead on those ones, so this is after another 4 hours. So now we are coming down to the 5th burn session, and honestly I'll probably make that the last burn session of this testing of this wax. As you can see, this one is almost halfway, so we'll get kind of a good idea of how it's going to burn when it gets halfway through. So I'm just going to go ahead and light these. So what I did was I went through, I cut off all the mushrooms on the top of it, so now they're at about 1/4 of an inch. And this is what they look like after this time. I'm trying to get a good visual. As you can see, this one has been burning down. Now we're just gonna see how big the flame gets as it gets lower, because if you guys were thinking at the beginning of this video that this wick is way too small, now you can see how hot it does get as it starts to burn down. So now this is the last of the burn test. So this is the end of burn test 5. And as I'm looking at this, I do see that the flame, obviously to the right there, it's burning a little bit hotter. But the other 2 candles on the left did catch up pretty good when it came to an actual flame and not just getting drowned out by it. So overall, I feel like I would definitely want to do more wick testing. I don't know if this would be the correct wick for this vessel, but it doesn't seem terrible, although the flame does look pretty hot and pretty high as it gets to be in the middle of the jar. So it'd be interesting to test this out a little bit more. All right guys, so that is the end of the burn test for this Coconut 83 wax. I hope that you guys enjoyed seeing the process of how I go about testing, what I look for, just my thoughts throughout it as it's burning. Again, I have not done a lot of testing with a bunch of different waxes in a bunch of different jars. So a lot of this is me learning as well through the process of me making these videos. But I thought it was really interesting just showing you guys so you could visually see that when a wick looks like it's going to be drowned out completely and it's way too small for the vessel that it's in, it might end up being okay if after the first couple of burns it doesn't burn all the way smooth and clean. And then you can see as it burns down further in the jar that it starts to get really hot. So there was one thing that I did notice, that there was a little bit of soot on this one from, as you could see, the flame did get pretty large at the end. And as it had been burning for about 4 hours, it started to let off just a little bit of smoke and soot to it. So that is definitely something to take into consideration, and I'm looking and wanting to test out this wax a little bit more with different kinds of wicks and using it in my actual vessels that I use. So I really hope that you guys enjoy this video. Please go ahead and leave your comments and your thoughts about this testing video and how you viewed this burn test, because I know that each individual would probably view this just a little bit differently, so I'm really curious to hear your thoughts. If you like this video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up, as well as subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And don't forget to follow me on Instagram at MemoryBoxCandleCo, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye guys.